in your journey towards a more sustainable future.
That's right.
See, I don't see the problem.
You don't see the problem there.
And I don't see the problem.
And
I can't afford it.
So again, we come back to what does it mean that I can afford it? That I have the money to pay it today, or that I have sufficient money to cover all my other plans for life as well
as this one.
That's where the issue is. And so we need to do a proper interrogation of what it means to say, I can afford. Okay. Having the money does not mean that you can afford. And that's, I know this is let me tell you, it's a tough lesson until you're inside it. And you find that people are in such a space in which they start with that one loan and then they take another one, and before they know it, because when you go, the financial institution is not concerned deeply about your future, about your needs, and about your plans and ambitions. What they are concerned about is, will we be able to collect our money on a monthly basis? They look, based on your salary, we can collect it. Now, whether as we collect it, you're able to save, invest for the future that you have, that is now on your side. If you are the one to make that decision. But for as far as we are concerned, you can afford it because you have the income to be able to do it. What I'm challenging us here is to say, we are not just debt-paying machines. You have an ambition, you have a plan, you have a goal for yourself, for your children, for your family. Instead of first looking at what the financial institution says you can do, look at what your personal goal is and then see how you fit this in. So I'm not here to say don't take a loan to buy a car. My issue is that people often take a loan to buy a car that will eat into their other goals. And that's the problem. Just the same, can I give you an example? You know that government employees, for example, and bank employees get preferential rates on their loans. Did you know that?
Yeah.
Like government employees, for example, on their mortgages, I believe it's about 3%. Can you imagine? While we are paying 18%. Okay? Now, here's what happens. And this is the mistake. Because the government employee can see my loan is so much, in quotes, cheaper than everybody else. Therefore, they end up buying a bigger house than they should for themselves and staying with that loan for a long period of time. So there's that pull towards saying, oh, it's cheaper for me, therefore I go further. And that's why we still have, at 3%, please, guys, would you be in deep trouble as far as your debt is concerned? Well, everybody else, can you imagine, is paying 18% on their mortgages today? So why are we still finding government employees having debt crises? It's because now they said my loan is cheaper. Instead of taking the house of 10 million, they say because my loan is at 3 million, they end up at 3%, they end up taking a house of 30 or 40 million. So they're still the amount coming out of their salary, the one they can afford,
it's the same as the one I'm paying at 18%.
The same one. So you're still having the same issue.
They have a bigger investment.
No.
I've bought 100 million shilling house, 30 million shilling house.
Yes.
Right? Because I am only paying at 3%.
Yes.
This other guy called Eric has a 10 million shilling house.
Yes.
Because he's charging 18%. I have a bigger house, I have a more valuable property.
But then this conversation, if you look at the number of Kenyans, the percentage of Kenyans who have mortgages, it's a percentage that statistically is almost irrelevant. If you look at the number of Kenyans who actually even have these so-called bank accounts and even save, see, the reality of our situation, what Brother Waithaka is preaching here is the ideal situation that we should all aim for. But certain things need to be constant.
Like
healthcare, education. There needs to be a semblance of stability where you, the person who's earning money, can take certain things for granted. Then even that saving that you talk about. So the best way we save is through SACCOs, because through the SACCO you can then borrow against the very thing that you have. So in actual reality, what you've saved is already leveraged. So if something were to happen, chances are you would, forget being maxed out, you'll be in the negative because when you throw in interest and all that, And if they were to take your savings
All
to
your
cover their
savings
money,
are gone.
precisely. But our situation is that the vast majority of people who claim to be in the employment sector are in what we call the informal sector. Okay? And it isn't, they would wish to do the very things you're saying. But are they able to? If we look at our reality, can they actually do that?
But City,
Yes.
how about those that are able to and they're doing it? Are they doing it right?
And that's why I'm here. Because listen to this. If we have a section of our economy that is beginning to do things right, and we are seeing the result of it, let me tell you, wealth is a good thing. Why? Because here I can see City. You know, City is an employer. And if City is doing well, he can employ even more people in his house.
Yeah.
Right now, he has probably somebody who's doing his garden. City has a guard at his gate. City has a maid in his house. I don't know if he has a driver. I didn't see anyone waiting outside here to drive your car. Wealth is a...
What does it need to look like for you to understand that?
No, I'm just saying. All I'm saying is I'm making assumptions. Wealth is a good thing. And what you can see is that wealth, even within the economy, begins to circulate. Why? What does that mean? If I have money in my pocket, I'll stop by a coffee shop down here and get myself a coffee. What does that mean? In that coffee shop, we have 4 or 5 young people who have been employed to buy that coffee. So when we're having this discussion, City, I do understand, and if you remember, I said a couple of minutes ago, we have Kenyans who are struggling. And that one, there are many different areas that we have to do. We help one another, we support one another. That's why we get aid and all those other things that we've discussed. But in this same country, we have one of the fastest growing middle classes that we have. That's why we're being called now a middle income economy. I am just saying it is happening. How do you know? Look around you. So maybe it's not happening.
Is it real or artificial?
It's not happening at the speed that hopefully that we think about, but for sure, when you're on the roads, how much traffic do you see? Where did that money come from to buy those cars?
The number of cars, or is the size of our roads?
I am saying there are more people driving cars now than when I started driving. There are more people who are employed today than we are. Now, the issue is that we're not building enough jobs at the speed that we have.
What I hear you, Vedaka, to be saying is that even as we now, those things that are showing us, like we have a growing and a budging middle class, right? The risk here is that it's all show, because many of those people are not doing things the right way. They are making the wrong financial choices. And we end up seeing big houses coming up. We end up seeing big cars on the road. We end up seeing all those things. And then we come back to what City always keeps saying, one paycheck away from losing all those things. Because, and that's why that's why you're saying what you're saying.
Yes.
You did not think about the future. You were thinking about the today. I bought because I can do 3%.
Yeah.
Take the bigger house.
That's
What's
right.
wrong with taking the bigger house?
So, what therefore is an asset? So can I give you what I mean by this? Oh, this one I am going to... Oh, please bear with me, people, as you listen. Your house, if you live in it, is not an asset in the way that you think. Because living in your own home is not free. In fact, if you own your own home, it costs you money to live there. And that's something that we need to begin to understand.
Why that? Where do you want people to live?
I want them to live in... Here's my issue, Ndu.
Okay.
I want you to live in your own home.
I bought my own house.
Listen carefully.
But I should not live in it.
Listen carefully. I want you to live in your own home, but I don't want you to be comfortable yet.
Okay.
I want you to make sure that you have other assets that pay you to live comfortably in your own home. Why do I say this? Because we train retirees. And this is the one thing that is the toughest thing. I spent my whole life, this is retirees speaking to me, I spent my whole life paying off this mortgage. I own this home, but now I'm here and I don't have money to go to the supermarket. But I'm living in my home. Millions of shillings worth. I cannot buy food in the supermarket. The car that I used to drive sits outside my house. I cannot drive it anymore because I don't have fuel to drive that car. So is the house a bad thing? No. But the house in and of itself is not financial freedom. When I talk about assets, please take this, those who are listening to me. Assets do what? Put money where? In your pocket. The more assets you have, the wealthier you are.
What if the asset retains money in your pocket? So my house, because I am living in this house of mine that I bought with my own money, Waithaka, I am now no longer paying rent.
You are not paying rent.
So I'm not removing money from my pocket.
For what? For rent.
For rent. I am retaining rent money in my pocket.
That is correct. But now you own your own home.
Yes.
Don't you pay land rates on that in most counties?
Pesa kidogo.
Pesa kidogo ukiwa nayo. Here it is.
Okay.
You pay land rates on it.
Land rates,
Do you have a landlord when your faucet breaks? Or there's an issue with the flooring? Or floods come? Do you have a landlord to call? Who is the one to do it? So when I'm talking about a retiree, please remember many times they don't have sufficient income to sustain that place.
So what would you have people do?
I want you to focus first on assets that put money where?
Pocket.
In your pocket. The more you have of them, the more financial freedom you have.
All right. I can understand what you're saying. I get it, right?
Correct.
But it's inspirational.
Aspiration.
It's inspirational, as in you can say, I want you to have assets. I'm inspiring. It's very inspirational. It is also aspirational because people would want to get there. But the reality of the situation, and we're not just trying to be Debbie Downers and say, oh, well, woe unto me, it's raining and life is terrible. But the truth of the matter is that things today are quite difficult. So if somebody gets an opportunity to buy a house, for example, and now here's Waithaka Gatumi is saying,
it's not an asset.
It's not an asset. That house is actually putting you further into poverty. Yeah. So what are you saying? Buy the house and rent it out so that somebody else can be paying you rent and paying off that loan while you go pay rent somewhere else.
Yes.
Yes, I agree with him.
Now you're still paying rent.
I am now speaking from personal experience. This is not something I'm talking about from someone else.
Let's hear this. Waithaka Gatumia is a case study.
When we started, my wife and I said, before we start getting things that we want, we get things that we need. So the first 10 years of our marriage, we lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. While I was still coming here and shouting at people, save and invest, I was living in a 2-bedroom apartment.
But you're only 2 of you.
No, I have 3 children.
Oh, at that point.
In that first 10 years, all 3 arrived.
Well done.
10 years, all right.
By the grace of God.
And after the 3, you've added
And I just said those ones.
2-bedroom rental.
While we were there,
2-bedroom rental apartment.
We started investing in our first property, which was a bigger 3-bedroom apartment. Our tenant was living larger than we were there.
Okay.
What did that mean? It meant that they were paying more rent than we were paying.
Okay.
Which means your mortgage was being paid and your rent was also being paid.
And we didn't even take a mortgage. We started off with something that we could be able to, because mortgages, I told you, are so expensive because of time. We started with a personal loan, so it was even more heavy, the monthly repayments, but we could only do that by the grace of God, by staying in a smaller place for that period
So
of
the
time.
rental income was paying off the loan?
It wasn't even enough.
Okay.
It was helping to pay off the loan.
Okay.
But because we took it for a shorter period of time, that loan was completed faster. And before you know it, now you have an asset. Once you've cleared that loan, now you have something that is putting money where?
In your pocket.
In your pocket.
Question, teacher?
And if at any point we were in financial strain, do we not own a house?
Question, teacher?
Could we move there? Yes.
Question.
Yes, sir.
Question.
Yes, sir.
So, 2-bedroom apartment, you're paying X rent on it. You have bought a 3-bedroom apartment, which is earning you X, Y rent in it. But you also have a facility that you're paying back to a financial institution, let's say bank. I assume it's a bank?
Yes.
Okay. Which you're paying Z for. Now, the XY income from the 3-bedroom apartment is not sufficient to cover the Z loan facility repayments per month. That means that your income, which is A plus B, wife, let's say household income A, is paying part of the Z
Yes.
and also paying the X rent and others. Now, X plus the Z minus XY, is it not the same amount as XY? Are you saying?
Same or more?
Are you saying that the rent you are paying for this
Yes.
2-bedroom
Yes.
plus the top up that you are putting
Yes.
was less than the rental income you're getting? Of course
No,
not.
I'm not saying that.
So if you went to occupy that house,
Yes.
the 3-bedroom house,
Yes.
right? And because all these things are coming from your income, your income A is paying rent of X and is paying the top up,
Yes.
right? If you went and lived in this 3-bedroom house, so you could still have paid that thing
Now
without
here-
having to do all this motherfu of now pay there.
You see how
top
people
up
ask
here,
very good
and
questions
then
on
now
this
see
show?
what-
Here's a very good question.
Eh.
Guess what? That 3-bedroom did not exist when we started paying for it. It didn't. We paid into an off-plan project. So for the first couple of years, it did not exist. Do you see what we are facing here? What I'm trying to get, so it didn't exist. I'm trying to say to our friends and everybody, and to people in this room, our focus, if we are thinking about wealth creation, must be on assets that put money in your pocket. Why is this? Because if by the grace of God, by the time I get to my retirement age, which is in the next 20 years or so, if I have 10, 15 houses that are all paying me rent, whether I live in one of them or not, I am financially secure.
True.
So you
Because
imagine.
I can be able to do it. No, I'm just saying it is a fact.
At least you have
if
an
I have
income.
10, and if maybe all of them are not working, I can move into one of them, which is still mine. I still own it. Like that house, I still own it.
And the other 9 now.
And the other 9 are
give-
still paying for